Hello, my horror-loving dudes. I'm KillJoy Jake, and today we're talking all about Saw X. Finally! There is so much new stuff confirmed about the film. The trailer came out a couple days ago, and I have my own speculations to throw at you guys a little later on in this video. Let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Apologies for this video being late. I would have had this out by Sunday, but your boy absolutely hit a wall. I got some really good news recently about a feature film I'm working on, and I just have not stopped working out of pure excitement because I love horror movies so much, and I think I'm finally going to be able to make a big one. But finally, let's get into some of the stuff that is confirmed about Saw X, including the fact that Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith are back. Costas Mandylor is also in this movie, but I'm assuming that they're not confirming that at this moment because that's part of the twist, and I have some theories about that later on. But you can clearly hear his voice in the trailer saying the exact same line twice. Of all the people to cheat, you picked John Kramer? A few other things revealed at Midsummer Scream is that this is going to be the longest Saw film, which means it'll be longer than an hour and 48 minutes. The previous longest film in the franchise was Saw 3, fun fact. It was also made very clear during the event and also the trailer that just came out that this will be a John Kramer focused movie. He will be sort of the protagonist in this, even though, you know, he's kind of a serial killer. I mean, technically John Kramer's never killed anybody. He's just put people in horrible situations where they would likely die, but you know, it's a different thing. I love John. He's just a goofy little guy. Producer Orrin Coles notes that John is the protagonist in this movie. This is John Kramer's story as a human. Also, the whole premise of this movie is one big reference to Saw 6, also directed by the same director of this film, Kevin Grudert. If you remember in Saw 6, John Kramer specifically brings up some experimental surgery that didn't work. Well, this is it. So not only is this film serving as like a sequel to the original, prequel to Saw 2 and, well, all the other films, but it's also got this really interesting connection to Saw 6 that I love. I don't know, this is like just a perfect film for Saw fans and also people who want to get into the film as well. You can watch this as a standalone, but it's also going to be an enhanced experience if you've seen all the other movies. Concept alone, I think all of the other requel films should be taking notes from Saw. This is how you do a requel. I mean, technically it's not that, but also technically it is. It's a direct continuation to the original, and you don't have to see any of the other sequels. On top of all of that, though, it's also a self-contained story. Like, you can watch Saw X by not really knowing anything else about the franchise. I think that is, like, the perfect way to continue these franchises. Look at Prey from last year in the Predator franchise. Like, sure, you don't need to see any of the other movies to enjoy that film, but if you have, like especially Predator 2, you'll appreciate some of the references. More franchises should be doing these isolated stories like this. We can continue franchises with brand new characters, but maybe some of the legacy characters too. And of course, some familiar monsters. The trailer, in my opinion, did a perfect job of showing just enough, but not too much to the point where I feel like the whole movie's spoiled. Like, sure, we kind of got like a glimpse at what like pretty much the majority of the traps are gonna look like in this film, but we didn't see all of the gore or all the nasty shit that's going to go down in this film. I'm sure of it. The plot description for Saw X reads, set between the events of Saw 1 and 2, a sick and desperate John travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure in hopes of a miracle cure to his cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. The infamous killer returns to his work, turning the tables on the con artists in his signature visceral way through devious, deranged, and ingenious traps. We get to see that in action in this new trailer, which was a lot of fun. I'm gonna highlight two traps specifically that we already know a lot about due to that Midsummer Scream panel. Now, you might remember earlier in the week when this poster for Saw X dropped. Now, when this poster came out, everybody was theorizing about what the hell is going on with those eyeball tubes. Well, now we finally have an answer due to our friends at Midsummer Scream who got to see a clip from Saw X early. Apparently, it was this trap specifically where a character has to break all of their fingers like this, and you even get to see it in the trailer where like this mechanical device just like breaks a finger like that. Ew. My dude's got to break all of his fingers or his eyeballs, and like part of his brain probably gets sucked up through this tube, and I'm assuming that he's gonna fail. Because let me tell you, old Jake wants to see that in action. This is very reminiscent of the trap from Spiral where the guy has to get all of his fingers pulled off, but I feel like this is gonna be even better. The trap in Spiral was a little different from this. The guy had to rip all of his fingers off so that he wouldn't get electrocuted. But in this case, the guy's got to break all of his fingers so that his eyeballs don't get sucked out of his skull. I mean, listen, I like both of them big time, but this one takes the cake. Dude, eyeballs getting sucked out of your face? Holy sh**. This is the most new metal franchise of all time, and I just fucking love it. The other trap that got highlighted at Midsummer Scream is the brain surgery trap, which we still don't really know too much about. From the trailer, it looks like one of our lead scientists, one of the Petersons, who we're going to talk about a little later in this video, is going to be the one in this trap, having to take parts of their brain out in order to survive. And listen, I'm no medical professional, but I would have to assume that you would want to keep all of your brain up in this little cavity we call a head here. Maybe there's a part of this that I don't need, but at the same time, I don't really want to find out. I'm good. Let's just keep all of that up there. Our doctors that we're dealing with here are Finn and Cecilia Peterson. We got to learn that from a quick little shot in the trailer talking about the Peterson Project. These are the con artists we were talking about in that vague plot description from earlier, and these are the charlatans that will f over John Kramer. And to paraphrase what Mark Hoffman said, you probably shouldn't have f***ed with John Kramer. I am unbelievably excited for Saw X. Now, I've been saying for a while that I knew this movie was going to be awesome. We have Kevin Grutert back in the director's chair, who has made some of the coolest Saw movies, and yes, I'm even roping Saw 3D into that madness. Listen, I know Saw 3D is not the best movie in this entire franchise, but honestly, even though the traps kind of suck in that movie, the story is really interesting and intriguing to me. Speaking of Saw 7, Saw 3D, the final chapter, whatever you want to call it, I have a feeling that the twist of Saw X is going to be related to that film. Obviously, a big theme to Saw X is that there's going to be a lot of doctor characters who aren't very good at their job. Well, let's talk about another doctor character that John Kramer thought wasn't very good at his job, Dr. Gordon. Technically, during this part of the timeline, this would have been when Dr. Gordon had started to become a disciple of Jigsaw's, and that's part of the twist in Saw 7, is that he's actually still alive and working for Jigsaw as an accomplice. While I think the majority of this film will be set in between the events of Saw 1 and 2, I think we also finally get a continuation to Saw 7. We can finally see what happened to Mark Hoffman, who was left for dead. I have a feeling my man escapes, and maybe it's all about Dr. Gordon going after him. Ooh. Once again, this is just a theory. Take this with a grain of salt. I don't know if Cary Ells has come back for this film. In fact, Mark Hoffman's not confirmed either, but like, come on, he's gonna be in this movie. Not only would it be so cool to finally get a continuation to that, but also, don't forget, this is the same director as that movie, coming back to do another Saw film. I have a feeling that maybe Kevin wants to continue that story here. And also, you know, we're going back to John Kramer. We're focusing on like one of the most important times in the Saw timeline again. It would make a lot of sense if we were to continue that storyline with something that happens in Saw X. The twist itself can't just be that Dr. Gordon is just a part of this. You know, it's got to be more than that. There has to be another inkling that we just haven't figured out yet. But I think it absolutely has to do with the cliffhanger at the end of Saw 3D. Regardless though, I am so excited for this movie, and I'm glad that more people are excited about it too. I remember when Saw X got announced and all these people were like just completely dissing it from the get-go, and I'm like, guys, Kevin Grutert is directing this. We should all be excited. I know the last two installments in the franchise were definitely some of the more weaker ones like Jigsaw and Spiral, but I still had a good time with them. It's always cool to see people in Saw traps, in my opinion. It's always going to be a fun time. But now I feel like we also have a really good story to play around with here. Will the twist involve accomplices? Will this just be a John Kramer isolated story? I'm not 100% sure, but I will say Twisted Pictures and Lionsgate promised us a really cool twist as well with this movie. What the f could that be? It should be something that continues the story past the events of Saw 3D for a Saw 11. You could say this franchise is getting too convoluted all you want, but in my opinion, that ship sailed a long time ago. Let's just indulge in this ridiculous fun franchise at this point. I am so excited to do a double feature of both Saw X and Paw Patrol on September 29th, or shall I say, Saw Patrol. What do you guys think about Saw X, though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching this big video on Saw X. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, especially if you want to see this channel grow, and if you want to join my podcast. The link for that is in the description below. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.